Everybody, welcome back. In this video, he's here. Living Tribunal slams, maybe slams, or he's on the scene. Do we think this is a card worthy of your purchase?
You're all not worthy.
We always say anybody who's on a tight budget and or has limited tokens, wait at least 6 days. Look at what the content creators are doing and how the metrics play out. We'll take a look at this plus the last card that truly did slam onto the scene, High Evolutionary. Do the numbers back up him being a great card or not? We'll look at that. If you did wait for High Evolutionary, hopefully this will help you make a decision to either keep holding off or maybe to pull the trigger. So let's jump in. We're going to start off with Living Tribunal and look at some limited data, but mainly to see what sort of decks you could play with this guy. Without even looking at any data, you're going to look at getting as many big cards on the board as you can. That leans into Shuri, that leans into Hela, and that leans into what I like to call lockjaw biggie smalls, which means you use small cards to pull bigger ones onto the board. We're going to go to untap.gg just to look at some early, insanely early, like this doesn't mean anything numbers. We've got it ranked out for the latest patch all the way through infinite because you do have infinite players testing this out. They might not care as much, but I think they're going to try to figure out decks that could work, content creators, etc. And for now, we're going to start off with average cubes. Like I mentioned, this is one of the decks that we're looking at with a lockjaw situation where you've got a bunch of bigger cards that you could pull in. You've got the Wasp and potentially the Mjolnir to go ahead and feed into Lockjaw, which by the way, Thanos could be an option too to make sure that you guarantee at least some one-cost cards to drop into Lockjaw. High Evo is a potential here given the Wasp to ding a little bit and Hulk getting even bigger. I'd be more into a bigger deck like this where you've got the Dracula you could play for anything that you don't necessarily get on the board. You got a bunch of big cards in here that can get pulled in from Lockjaw. Jane's not a bad card to bring in as well. Electro Ramp is an option. I don't know if I love this one that much. You know, it's interesting to get Ebony Maw potentially hidden behind your Invisible Woman. That's the idea there. Maybe get Iron Man hidden behind that and then drop your Living Tribunal. Very interesting. Iron Lad also could help double some things up. By the way, we'll see if there's going to be a negative deck on here because I think that's definitely an option as well because you could start loading things up with a negative deck that hits right. I talked about Thanos earlier. Here you go. Here's Thanos with the Lockjaw. The Goose situation is interesting. That might help you limit a lane for your opponent so that way they don't necessarily build it up a lot because one of the problems with Living Tribunal is the fact that if your opponent only focuses 2 lanes and your power gets dispersed amongst 3, that could lose you the game. I talked about negative. Here you go. Jane Thor to bring some zeros in. That can get tricky at times, but it's okay. This one's got Iron Lad in it. You don't necessarily have to have Iron Lad. You could lean more into getting something that you really want in there that's a good flip. Crystal's interesting, though I don't know if I'd want to play her. I don't see a magic anywhere in here, and I normally like to have a magic anytime I'm playing a negative deck, so I don't necessarily love this one. You get more Lockjaw options with just bigger cards. Another negative option here that's got Black Panther in it as well. Not a lot of games for these, but you're seeing the different deck types that people are looking at. I'm talking negative. I'm talking biggie smalls. The funny thing is we haven't seen Shuri yet. Where there's not one Shuri in here, which I would have thought maybe is going to be there. But the truth is I could see that being very, very limiting. So maybe it's not something that you necessarily want to explore. So negative and the Lockjaw biggie smalls. We haven't mentioned it yet, but the Warpath and Omega Red could be really good for Living Tribunal as well. There's a lot of risk with Living Tribunal though, remember, because it's ongoing. So if you get Enchantress or you're leaning into Iron Man or something like that that gets Enchantress, you are toast. That would be one good reason to have Invisible Woman in there and do hide these things. Here's a Hela type deck. This is going to be a challenge just for your general Hela type situations because not only do you need to not discard Hela, you need to not discard your Living Tribunal. So you've got to have both of those in your hand and be able to hide your MODOK and then hide your Hela for turn 6. This one here, this is a very difficult. I would not try this Hela version at all. I would lean more into having Invisible Woman, having your MODOK, and just keeping your fingers crossed that you get the line that you need to. Like this one right here. Now, it's only 37 games. The cube rate's not great. The win rate's not great. Personally, I would lean away from the Ghost Rider in this. I get that that's there to help you potentially get something, but I would just lean all in on Invisible Woman, MODOK, Hela, and then having stuff in your hand. It's nice to have Morbius, but that tells your opponent exactly what you're doing. So I don't know if I love that. I would maybe put a Sunspot in there or something along those lines instead. Magic as well to try to extend. More cards you get into your hand, the better. Even a Kang, honestly, isn't a bad idea just to thin your deck, because as soon as you draw Kang, maybe you get it on turn 5. Play it on turn 5. Electro Ramp. That's something that that you want. You want to get as many cards in here as possible. I do like the crystal idea too, to draw additional cards from your deck. Those are some ideas. I don't want to spend an insane amount of time on it. It's early. My personal recommendation right now is to hold off. I do see some fun here, but I'm not convinced it's going to be something that's going to shake a bunch of things up. It's more math for you, so if you don't like doing that, then definitely don't get the card. So let's jump into our friend High Evolutionary and see how he's doing. All right, we go back to untap.gg. Again, we're doing latest patch. Right now, we're not including any infinite players, and we're going to do average cubes. So the numbers here aren't bad. 0.6, 0.6, those are decent. 0.5. The win rates here, though, are really solid, all above 60. I'm just scrolling through here to look at these. These are all pretty good. And you're seeing a number of decks here. Not a lot of games, though. Let's just switch straight up to game count and see how they're doing. So the highest game count that we've seen is the overall general High Evolutionary deck. That average cube is not great at all, honestly. You have a version with Doom. Again, not all that great. A lot of games there, but not great cubes. 0.27 for that many games isn't too bad considering the audience and spreading it out a little bit. The control at 0.3, not too bad at a number of games. But again, we like to focus really on average cubes there. So I wanted to see what's the most games with a high number. We've got a lot of 360. So a lot of these games, we're just scroll. Okay, so here's the highest game total with a decent average cube. It's a control deck. This one's got Storm JJ in it. I've seen some JJs lately with Storm. I'm not sure that's one I love the most. I think I'd maybe like to combine Storm with Cyclops more than JJ, but maybe if you don't pull it. I would rather have a She-Hulk type situation in here because I've been playing with that quite a bit, and I personally love that a lot more. But given these win rates, I mean, just scrolling out, there's a ton of control with High Evo. I'll have to say that's the one that I've been playing, and I'm fingers crossed finally going to be able to get to infinite with it. We'll see. It's been an insane season. Different video for that one. But these cube rates are good. Let's jump this up to infinite just to see how things changed. All right, so again, I always like to caveat this. Anytime you're looking at infinite, you do have people who are just sort of messing around. You have potentially people who are playing against a lot more bots. Whereas the lower levels, you've got people try-harding to get to infinite. You typically don't have people who are just necessarily messing around. Now, at the same time, the flip side of that argument is, yeah, well, your infinite players are your better players because they're already in infinite. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. So we've got a general High Evolutionary deck. This one's got the Hazmat and Luke Cage combo in it. A great combination. Another Luke Cage one off to the right. Arrow in this one. I have not seen that at all, honestly. Not a lot of games there, but a good cube rate. Doom Wave with High Evo, huh? That's interesting. I could see that potentially being decent, but again, if you're doing that, then you're not gaining anything on your Sunspot or your Misty. I feel like that's a little bit counterintuitive with what you've got going on with your Hulk and those cards. So if you're going to lean into a Doom Wave with High Evo, I'd really want to look at that a little bit harder. I mean, the cube rate's good, but I have to admit I'm a bit surprised on that. Only 220 games. So game count with infinite on here, a ton of games, 12,000, 10,000. Given that this guy's only been out a week, that's insane. Solid win rates, okay, cube gains. These are the decks that have got just general High Evo. You've got Rogue, Luke Cage, Hazmat. Again, you've got a wave in this version. High Evo does lean into potentially only playing one card that last turn, so that wave is not a bad option for that deck. You've just got to make sure that you've built up to that point. Some control options, Storm, Spider-Man. I've definitely been loving the Spider-Man aspect. I don't have Storm in mine. A lot of games to get some ideas here. The cube rates are all okay. 0.2, 0.1. Again, I'm going to go back to average cubes, and I'm going to see some decks here that are in the 200 range, but these are the solid decks that you're going to see out there. And I think as you scroll down here and you get more and more, the number of decks that you've got that are higher than 0.5, and I'm looking at, so this game's, again, control 800 games. You can take Jeff out of that and easily put something else in there. Could be Nightcrawler for those simpler decks. Overall, a number of decks in here that are definitely good average cubes with good win rates. Again, not a ton of games, but there's only been a week. When you think about this number of games in a week, that's an okay sample. And not that you needed me to tell you this, but High Evo is definitely worth the tokens. It has just been solidified in my mind that he is probably the best big bad to buy. There's people already talking about nerfing him. I don't like that at all. Let's let this big bad be strong, be good. I love it. Hulk is actually being played. It's a great card. There's plenty of counters to this. It's not like it's an insane situation. Hulk can be shanked. He can be enchantressed. All sorts of different counters out there. So what do you guys think? Where are you going to spend your tokens? I'm assuming you've already made your decision on High Evolutionary. I've confirmed that it's absolutely a great buy. I hope that Second Dinner is not considering any sort of necessary nerfs to this guy and his associating team members. Living Tribunal, as always, wait and see mode. I'm even myself waiting and seeing it. As a content creator, I'm not touching that one necessarily. Part of it is wanting to get to Infinite, and I'm this close, and I want to make sure to get it in this last week. That's part of the thing where this game, it is a little frustrating to have these new cards. Like, oh, I want to go play with it. It's like, well, then I put myself at risk for potentially climbing the ladder and just testing. But again, that's a different video. So simple, easy video today. I just wanted to get some thoughts out there, see what you guys are thinking, maybe potentially help people look at some numbers. Not that we necessarily need them for high Evo, but they're there. And then Living Tribunal, I think, is a wait and see for sure. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. There's a Discord link in the description below as well. If you want to share with your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, always appreciate that. Until next time, hope you have a wonderful day.